Welcome to our channel. In this video, we will uncover the remarkable journey of Susan Ker Weld, better known as Tuesday Weld, whose life was marked by early fame, profound personal struggles, and a fiercely independent spirit. From her beginnings as a child model in New York City, through her tumultuous teenage years and controversial Hollywood career, Tuesday's story is one of both undeniable talent and heartbreaking challenges. Join us as we explore the choices she made, the roles she turned down, and the intimate insights she shared about a life lived under intense public scrutiny. Susan Ker Weld was born on August 27, 1943, in New York City. When her father, Lathrop Motley Weld, died 3 years later at the age of 49, the young girl, whose name by then had somehow been transmogrified into Tuesday, took over the role of the family breadwinner, which included her mother, Yosine Balfour Ker. She began her career as a child model in fashion and catalogs at age 3. She became a successful child model posing for advertisements and mail-order catalogs. Her work and the burden of responsibility estranged her from her mother Yosine and her 2 elder siblings and forced the preteen girl into adulthood. To understand the magnitude of this situation, we should first consider the era in which Tuesday Weld's earliest years took shape. The post-World War II period in the United States was marked by a sense of optimism for many families, as soldiers returned home and the American economy surged. Yet for some, economic or personal hardship arose from the sudden loss of a provider, as was the case with Tuesday's family when her father died. Children who found themselves in such situations sometimes had no choice but to step into adult roles. Modeling at age 3 brought Tuesday Weld an unusual combination of responsibility and exposure. In the 1940s, child labor laws were nowhere near as comprehensive as they are today. Parents of child models had broad discretion over their children's schedules, finances, and workload. Because she became the main breadwinner, Tuesday did not have a childhood resembling that of her peers. Instead of focusing on early education or carefree play, she was thrust into the adult world of business, marketing, and photo shoots. The daily stresses of pleasing photographers, fulfilling client demands, and navigating rejection would have been significant for any adult, let alone a preschooler. Her mother, Yosine, found herself in an unenviable position. She was widowed with 3 children, and her youngest child, Tuesday, brought money into the household. This dynamic constrained the typical parent-child bond. The mother, relying on her daughter for income, might push her to accept more gigs than healthy. Tensions within the household, especially between Tuesday and her elder siblings, could easily escalate as the others watched the youngest child become, in effect, the family's economic linchpin. As a result, these early years were defined by a sense of emotional distance within the family. The fact that Tuesday's given name, Susan, was effectively replaced by Tuesday might seem whimsical, but it also symbolizes a broader shift in her identity. The name change became part of her personal mythology, one that signaled she was no ordinary child. This adoption of a memorable offbeat name would serve her in Hollywood, where distinctiveness can make or break a career. Yet it may also have further isolated her from a normal upbringing, strengthening the notion that she was separate or different from other children. During these years, the modeling industry prioritized physical appearance and adaptability above anything else. For someone as young as Tuesday, the demands were immense. She would have had to stand or pose for prolonged periods, often in uncomfortable outfits or stage surroundings, attempting to project a carefree innocence for the camera. This forced focus on external perfection can become psychologically burdensome. While child stars of the era like Shirley Temple often received adoration from the public, The behind-the-scenes challenges, grueling schedules, controlling stage mothers, financial pressures could dim any personal enjoyment of stardom. Tuesday Weld, unlike many of her peers, did not have the luxury of viewing modeling as a fun pastime. It was her very means of survival. This responsibility sowed the seeds for a life where personal boundaries were continually tested or ignored. She would later discuss how the line between her own genuine emotions and what was demanded of her became blurry, illustrating a common struggle among child performers. Another critical factor here is how quickly Tuesday was forced to become an adult in emotional terms. Even with some resources coming in from her modeling, she likely experienced concerns and anxieties that a typical toddler or young child should never have to face, such as whether her mother could pay the bills or whether she would lose her position in a modeling agency. The rift that developed between her and her family is thus more understandable. Childhood is typically a phase of dependency, guided by nurturing parents, but in Tuesday's life, that dynamic was reversed. She was the provider. Such role reversal can have lasting effects on one's psyche, shaping relationships and self-identity for decades to come. At 9 years of age, she suffered a nervous breakdown. At 10, she started heavy drinking. 1 year later, older men began exploiting her, all of which led to a suicide attempt at age 12. After her love for a gay man did not work out, she also claimed that she had her first real affair at 11. One of the most startling details in Tuesday Weld's story is that she endured a nervous breakdown at 9. A child that age typically experiences mild stressors, perhaps trouble in school or minor disagreements with friends. In Tuesday's case, the stress that catalyzed her breakdown was, by all accounts, extraordinary. She had been supporting her family for several years already. The adult demands placed on a young child, along with the need to perform flawlessly in photo shoots or auditions, created a psychological toll that manifested as severe anxiety and mental collapse. Then, at 10 years old, Tuesday turned to heavy drinking. This fact underscores the extreme nature of her environment, where a child had both easy access to alcohol and the emotional impetus to use it. The glitz of the entertainment world can sometimes cloak darker realities. From adult parties to rap celebrations, alcohol is abundant and not always well regulated when minors are present. A child star, especially one with tenuous supervision, may adopt destructive coping mechanisms, such as alcohol, to numb mounting pressures. The situation intensified as older men began exploiting her by age 11. The entertainment industry, historically, has harbored predatory individuals who take advantage of young performers lacking guidance or protection. Tuesday, estranged from her mother, could have found herself vulnerable to manipulative figures. The mention of a suicide attempt at age 12 paints a harrowing picture. Feeling so desperate and hopeless that she tried to end her life. This event underscores the depth of her suffering and the absence of strong adult advocates to shield her from exploitation or help her navigate an environment rife with moral pitfalls. Interestingly, she also spoke of having her first real affair at 11. While modern audiences might view that statement as a manifestation of abuse rather than a consensual relationship, Tuesday's own narrative from that period suggests she perceived it in complex, perhaps contradictory ways. Part teenage rebellion, part misguided longing for affection and stability. In recollecting these experiences, she seemed aware of how abnormal they were, but her sense of normalcy had been distorted. The heartbreak that arose from falling in love with a gay man whose orientation precluded reciprocating her romantic feelings illuminates another dimension of her emotional fragility. She was searching for belonging, care, and partnership at an age when most children are preoccupied with basic schoolyard friendships. That this intense relationship ended painfully seems to have compounded her despair, propelling her further into the throes of depression and suicidal ideation. We should consider the overarching cultural and social norms of the time, the 1950s, when therapy and counseling were often stigmatized. A child grappling with these issues might have been dismissed as simply troubled or defiant, rather than someone in desperate need of psychological support. Tuesday's mother, engaged with the demands of ensuring the family's livelihood, may not have recognized or did not want to recognize the severity of her daughter's distress. This lack of intervention left Tuesday effectively on her own to deal with adult problems in a child's body. Her heavy drinking, suicide attempt, and manipulative relationships are thus part of a tragic tapestry. Tuesday's story provides a stark reminder of the potential consequences when a child's welfare is subsumed by adult agendas, whether that involves turning a profit or the misguided assumption that fame and money equate to protection. In reality, these factors frequently aggravate a child's vulnerability, especially if there is no stable adult presence to serve as a buffer. By 16, she had totaled half a dozen cars and was dating men 3 times her age, most notably John Ireland, which caused a scandal but did not lead to statutory rape charges. In 1956, she debuted in the low-budget exploitation movie Rock, 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 and decided to become an actress. After numerous TV appearances in New York, she went to Hollywood in 1958 and was cast in Rally Round the Flag, Boys, something of a breakthrough for her. Tuesday. Weld's entry into her teenage years was marked by tumultuous behavior and escalations of risk. Crashing up to 6 cars by the time she was 16 underscores her rebellious streak and the sense that she lacked any real accountability or consequence. That rebellious edge also carried over into her personal life, as she dated considerably older men, including actor John Ireland. While the relationship provoked tabloid fodder, it never resulted in formal charges, potentially revealing the industry's tendency to shield established actors or rising starlets from legal scrutiny, especially when scandal could hurt profits. The mid-1950s was a fertile time for teen-oriented films. In 1956, at the age of 13, going on 14, Tuesday landed a part in Rock, Rock, Rock. This low-budget exploitation movie featured music acts and a plot aimed at capitalizing on the era's rock and roll craze. Starring alongside performers like Chuck Berry, Tuesday's involvement further propelled her into the teen culture spotlight. The film's low production values did not diminish its significance to her emerging career. It served as her stepping stone from mere modeling and scattered commercials to actual screen acting. After Rock, 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 Tuesday appeared in numerous television productions in New York. Throughout the 1950s, live TV broadcasts and anthology programs flourished, providing opportunities for fresh faces to develop their acting chops. Such appearances allowed her to refine her on-camera presence, bridging the gap between modeling, largely about capturing still images, and performing in scripted narratives. Each performance introduced her to different directors, producers, and casting agents. By 1958, she moved to Hollywood, the epicenter of American film. There, she secured a role in Rally Round the Flag, Boys, a comedic film featuring established names like Paul Newman and Joanne Woodward. While her part was relatively small, it signaled something of a breakthrough. She was no longer confined to the teen exploitation genre. Now she was acting in a mainstream production for a major studio. This progression underscored her potential to transition from child model to legitimate actress, a path not always guaranteed for child performers. However, her personal life remained chaotic. Reports of wild parties, heavy drinking, and older lovers continued to shape the media's portrayal of her. In the context of the 1950s and 1960s, such behavior both intrigued and horrified the public. She became a figure who represented youthful rebellion, someone unafraid to flout traditional rules of conduct. Paradoxically, this notoriety could help rather than hurt her career. Hollywood has long been drawn to young icons who embody cultural shifts, and Tuesday was naturally, if painfully, fulfilling that role. It is also worth noting that this period introduced her to the broader currents of youth culture. The 1950s saw the birth of the teenager as a distinct consumer demographic, embraced by film, music, and advertising. Movies like Rock, Rock, Rock catered directly to these new consumers, offering them reflections of their own interests, rock music, dancing, teenage social drama, on the big screen. Tuesday's real-life persona, blending defiance and vulnerability, resonated with that audience. At the same time, it deepened her entanglement with a Hollywood system that both glorified and exploited teenage stars. Despite these complexities, Tuesday Weld emerged from her teenage years with growing recognition and a resume of notable performances. The question was whether she could harness this momentum to break free from the traps that ensnared so many other teen idols, typecasting scandal or fading public interest, when the next wave of youth culture inevitably arrived. Over the next few years, Tuesday became Hollywood's queen of teen, playing mainly precocious sex kittens. Her wild private life added to the entertainment of her fans. Critics acknowledged her talent, directors approved of her professionalism, and in the late 1960s, she even managed to grow out of her child woman image and find more demanding roles. She had been Sweet Little 16 for about 16 years, graduated from Hollywood Professional School in 1960, and was the class valedictorian. As the 1960s dawned, Tuesday Weld found herself lauded as Hollywood's Queen of Teen. This label stemmed partly from the roles she played, which often highlighted youth, seduction, and a hint of rebellion. Hollywood was in a phase of cultural realignment. Studios were beginning to acknowledge that teen audiences had a powerful influence on box office revenue. By casting Tuesday in roles that underscored her image as a precocious yet troubled beauty, producers could attract viewers curious about this daring, sultry persona. Her personal life, which the press eagerly publicized, only added to her mystique. Tales of late-night parties, older boyfriends, and feuds with her mother were fodder for fan magazines. Interestingly, her off-screen behavior echoed the characters she portrayed, teenagers who were either misunderstood, hypersexualized, or rebellious. The public conflation of the real Tuesday with the fictional character she played might have boosted her popularity, but it also risked pigeonholing her into a narrow range of parts. Despite the drama, critics consistently remarked on her innate talent. Directors praised her focus and ability to interpret nuanced characters beyond their scripted lines. The contradiction between her wild child public image and her professional reliability on set became a signature aspect of Tuesday's story. It suggested that beneath the chaos of her personal life, she had honed a craft. An essential milestone in her teenage years was that she continued her schooling, ultimately graduating from Hollywood Professional School in 1960 as class valedictorian. At first glance, this seems a startling contrast to the tabloid headlines. However, it highlights Tuesday's intelligence and determination to pursue personal growth amidst the swirling spectacle of her career. Hollywood Professional School was designed to accommodate young performers, offering flexible schedules that allowed them to balance academic obligations with filming. That Tuesday emerged as valedictorian speaks volumes about her intellectual rigor and ability to thrive under extraordinary pressures. A turning point for Tuesday occurred in the late 1960s, when she began shedding her child woman persona. Seeking more mature, demanding roles, she signaled that she was not content to remain forever in the role of a teenage sex symbol. Critics who followed her career noted that her acting in some later films displayed greater depth and versatility. She might play a conflicted adult woman rather than a coquettish adolescent, thereby challenging industry expectations. However, Tuesday Weld did not achieve first magnitude stardom. Maybe she was just unlucky with her selection of jobs. She turned down Lolita, Bonnie and Clyde, True Grit, Bob and Carol, and Ted and Alice, among others. Maybe her independence-loving mind made her instinctively shrink back from the restraints of superstardom. In any case, she kept on performing well in films that had either not much flair or not much success. From the mid-1970s on, she focused more and more on made-for-TV movies, which was ironic in that the best and most successful films that came her way happened after her big-screen career had pretty much petered out. One of the most curious aspects of Tuesday Weld's legacy is the litany of iconic roles she reportedly turned down. Whether it was Stanley Kubrick's Lolita, Arthur Penn's Bonnie and Clyde, Henry Hathaway's True Grit, or Paul Mazursky's Bob and Carol and Ted and Alice, each of these films left a significant mark on cinematic history. Had she agreed to any one of them, it might have catapulted her into a higher stratum of stardom. But Tuesday Weld seemed either uninterested or hesitant to attach herself to massive projects that required heavy media promotion. Some industry insiders suggested that she distrusted the spotlight, recalling her traumatic experiences in childhood. Others speculated that she feared being typecast or losing control of her personal life under the weight of blockbuster publicity campaigns. Regardless of the underlying motives, these repeated decisions to decline major roles had a cumulative effect. While she continued to work, her filmography lacked that one definitive role that could forever link her name to cinematic greatness in the public's mind. Instead, Tuesday focused on films that were smaller in scale or that, despite assembling fine casts and crews, did not quite achieve box office or critical success. She had the ability to elevate lesser-known projects with her acting prowess, and critics who paid attention often praised her performances. The challenge lay in the fact that these projects did not always resonate with mainstream audiences. By the mid-1970s, her shift toward made-for-TV movies became more pronounced. This era witnessed a growing acceptance of television as a legitimate medium for serious drama. Major networks produced film-length features that occasionally tackled controversial or socially relevant themes. For an actress seeking steady work, but not the relentless scrutiny of Hollywood blockbusters, made-for-TV films could offer a stable path. Paradoxically, some of her most accomplished and nuanced performances appeared on television, even though it meant less public or critical fanfare. It is worth noting the irony that Tuesday's best roles, according to some critics, arrived when her big-screen career was essentially in decline. This phenomenon is not unique to her. Various actors have found more creative freedom and less commercial pressure in television or independent films. She seemed drawn to roles that were daring or that showcased a woman in conflict, challenges that might not have been as readily accessible in commercial films of the era. Her repeated steps away from potential superstardom also reflect a broader tension many performers experience: the desire for artistic fulfillment versus the demands of commerce. choosing not to be part of major blockbusters might have safeguarded her autonomy. She remained a respected, if somewhat mysterious, figure in the industry, steering her own course rather than succumbing to the allure of big paychecks or universal fame. Whether this was to her long-term advantage or disadvantage remains a matter of debate, but it cemented her status as a uniquely independent spirit in Hollywood's annals. Tuesday Weld was married 3 times, first to Claude Hartz, then to Dudley Moore, and finally to Pinchas Zukerman. She was featured on the cover of the album Girlfriend by Matthew Sweet. Except at the beginning of her career, she has always been extremely media shy. Romantic relationships often anchor the public's fascination with celebrities, and Tuesday Weld's were no exception. Her first marriage to Claude Hartz, a screenwriter with whom she also had a child, while less publicized than her relationship with Dudley Moore, it highlights her continued ties to creative individuals. Interestingly, Tuesday Weld often spoke about her marriages sparingly. Her aversion to intense media scrutiny meant that she seldom revealed personal details. This silence left fans and journalists to speculate, leading to a mystique about her private life. She later married comedic actor Dudley Moore, a match that garnered more intense media attention. Moore, at that time, was recognized for his comedic brilliance, both on television and in films such as 10 and Arthur. This high-profile coupling naturally sparked public interest. However, the marriage faced its challenges, perhaps exacerbated by their respective careers and the weight of 2 distinct fan followings. They had 1 child together, weaving their lives more tightly despite personal conflicts. Finally, she married to the classical violinist and conductor Pinchas Zukerman, was a notable union between a film actress and a prominent figure in the world of classical music. Their lifestyles may have been worlds apart. The disciplined environment of symphonic performance versus the unpredictable realm of Hollywood. Nonetheless, the marriage symbolized Tuesday's capacity to connect with people outside the immediate sphere of the film industry. Being featured on the cover of Matthew Sweet's 1991 album Girlfriend offers another glimpse into her cultural influence. The cover image, taken from a past photograph, introduced Tuesday to an entire generation of alternative rock listeners who might have been unfamiliar with her film career. Sweet's choice reflected the enduring romantic and nostalgic aura surrounding Tuesday's youth in Hollywood. Here was an actress from an earlier era, symbolizing a type of classic beauty and complicated fame that intrigued artists in subsequent decades. Over time, she became noted for her extreme media shyness, a stark contrast from her forced childhood exposure. She rarely granted interviews or participated in industry gatherings, except when absolutely necessary. Some saw this as aloofness, but many interpreted it as a protective measure, a way to reclaim her autonomy after so many years in the spotlight. Indeed, for someone who had dealt with paparazzi and public speculation from the age of 3, stepping away from the lens was an understandable desire. She was director Roman Polanski's first choice for the title role in Rosemary's Baby in 1968 because he thought her pure American looks would contrast well with the film's dark undertones. The studio preferred Mia Farrow, however, who had become a star on the enormously popular nighttime soap opera Peyton Place. A few years later, Polanski wanted her to star in his film version of Macbeth. When asked by a reporter what drove her into seclusion after having such a public adolescence, she answered, "I think it was a Buick." The notion that Roman Polanski envisioned Tuesday Weld for Rosemary's Baby is particularly striking, given how iconic Mia Farrow's performance later became. Polanski's reasoning that Tuesday's pure American look would heighten the horror film's psychological tension makes sense in retrospect. She had already showcased her ability to portray innocence tinged with underlying turmoil. It suggests that Polanski recognized an intensity in her that could capture Rosemary's descent into paranoia and fear. Yet, studio preferences intervened and Mia Farrow, fresh from Peyton Place, secured the role. While Farrow's casting was pivotal to that film's success, one cannot help but wonder how differently it might have played if Tuesday Weld had embodied Rosemary. Likewise, Polanski's later desire to cast her in Macbeth underscores his faith in her range. Despite these possibilities, Tuesday's reluctance, perhaps an outgrowth of her experiences with major productions or her deepening reclusiveness, prevented those collaborations. Her quip to the reporter, "I think it was a Buick," has become an emblematic example of her wry, cryptic humor. On one level, it seems like a flippant response to a serious question: how she vanished from the public scene after spending her adolescence in front of cameras. On another level, the statement might symbolize the relentless chase of paparazzi or fans, implying that she felt as if she were run over by the unstoppable machinery of fame. The first year she spent on the set of The Many Loves of Dobie Gillis in 1959 was also marked by intense media intrusion. Suddenly, she found herself besieged by interviews and articles, focusing on her personal life more than her acting. For someone who had already endured exploitation in childhood, this level of attention likely confirmed her sense that the press could be predatory. Ultimately, she shut them out, which effectively reduced coverage of her thereafter. Her stance toward publicity evolved into a pattern. She turned down high-profile roles and avoided extensive marketing campaigns, preventing the kind of widespread fame that might have overshadowed every aspect of her personal life. This approach distinguished her from many contemporaries who either courted or endured media attention for the sake of success. Instead, Tuesday seemed willing to sacrifice mainstream stardom if it meant safeguarding her own emotional well-being. In Tiny Tim's recording of George M. Cohan's song, "Then I'd Be Satisfied with Life," he changes the line, "If Hetty Green would only be my wife," to "If Tuesday Weld would only be my wife." She and her Wild in the Country, 1961, co-star Hope Lang both portrayed the character of Selena Cross, Weld in the movie sequel Return to Peyton Place, Lang in the original film Peyton Place. Anthony Perkins and Dinah Merrill are her third cousins. She nearly landed the leading role in Of Human Bondage in 1964, when director Henry Hathaway proved to be completely incompatible with star Kim Novak. She twice portrayed a character who undergoes abortion in Play It As It Lays, 1972, and Looking for Mr. Goodbar, 1977. She was supposed to star in Performance, 1970, and The Stepford Wives, 1975, but bowed out at the last minute. In the mid-1980s, Tuesday began telling people her mother was dead, even though she was still alive. Aileen Weld did not pass away until 2001. Singer Walter Egan recorded Tuesday Weld, his self-penned tribute to the actress, on his 1980 album, The Last Stroll. Donald Fagen mentions her in his song New Frontier on the album The Night Fly, with the line, "Introduce me to that big blonde, she's got a touch of Tuesday Weld." She was considered to play Mrs. Lovett in a film version of the musical Sweeney Todd, the demon barber of Fleet Street, but she passed on the role. As time went on, when it was finally made in the 2000s, the role went to Helena Bonham Carter. She sold her homes in Manhattan and her beach house in Montauk and moved to Colorado near Aspen. As of June 2010, she was living in the Aspen area and has turned down work for over 10 years. Her major agents still send her scripts weekly, but she is writing and close to her daughter and granddaughter. She has offered mother roles on hit series but looks better than her years. In April 2018, she bought a $1.8 million home in the Hollywood Hills after years of living in Colorado. I hated Mama. I didn't feel really free until she died. Otherwise, her death really didn't affect me much. Mama is already back here wandering around doing something, I hope, as a puppy dog. When I was 9, I had a breakdown, which disappointed Mama a great deal. But I made a comeback when I was 10. I was in and out of several schools, but I never really went. There were no rules then in New York protecting working children. I was doing television shows as well as modeling, and instead of going to school, I used to do what they called correspondence, which meant that if I was working, I'd just write in and say I had jobs. Even when I didn't have jobs, I'd get up in the morning and say, "Goodbye, Mama. I'm going to school." And then I'd head for the village and get drunk. I started drinking heavily when I was about 10 years old. I made my first suicide attempt when I was 12. I had fallen in love with a homosexual, and when it didn't work out, I felt hurt. A bottle of aspirin, a bottle of sleeping pills, and a bottle of gin. I was sure that would do the trick. But Mama came in and found me. I was in a coma for a long time, and I lost my hearing, my vision, and several other things. When I recovered, I decided that I should try to get some help, but Mama didn't think I needed analysis. That is the story of the young girl we follow each year. Everything changes over time. She's now getting old. Her health is no longer the same. If there is one wish, I wish this world would have no lonely people, no one to be sad about that love story. But I know that it will never happen. Everything is the same, still revolves around unexpected events, and we look forward to them. Thank you for watching. Her story, woven from childhood hardships, daring career moves, and complex personal relationships, offers an intimate glimpse into the highs and lows of Hollywood fame. As time has passed, Tuesday retreated from the spotlight, yet her legacy remains a testament to both the glittering allure and hidden costs of stardom. May her journey remind us that behind every celebrated figure lies a human story, one that endures long after the final curtain has fallen. If you enjoy the video, give us a like, comment, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel to receive more of our new videos.